All right. So first things first, can you just give me a heads up if you can't hear me? Let us know if the sound and video is coming through okay. I'm going to assume so while we wait until the messages come through. So we will start by just saying thank you for everyone coming. And I'll give a little introduction as to who I am. So my name's Luke. I'm a full stack developer, but mainly backend. Certainly work a lot with Laravel. And recently a lot with Pest as well. So I know with some of the great people at Pest to deliver some awesome features to the Pest framework. That's good, the sound's working. And yeah, it's been great to be able to do that. And I love Pest so much, particularly the expectation API. I think it's brilliant. I think it's one of the best ways to test, and I'd like to share that with people. And what better way to do that than to add tests to real live projects that live in the real world. So sometimes we have tutorials that teach us how to write tests, but they certainly are quite basic and don't usually cover the complexities that come up in the application. So hopefully with Pest in practice, we're going to be able to take a look over all of those side cases, edge cases, and we have to learn it along the way. It's certainly not going to be perfect. I'll make some mistakes and we'll be looking at documentation often. Hopefully you can enjoy that. Christoph says that the audio is not working well for me. Audio is great though. I think that's we're going to go with audio great. Audio is really bad. This is terrible. It's back and forth. I'm trying to make the microphone closer. Let's see how we get on. I'm just going to see if I can edit a few settings. Let's just try that, see if that's any better. I'll carry on, let me know if it's still terrible, and we'll see what we can do. If it doesn't help as well, it's a giant rainstorm that decided to happen just as we started the stream. So, alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and we shall kick off. So yeah, we want to take a look at the Pest PHP framework and how you can get started using it in your projects. This is whether you've got no tests at all, or whether you are working in an existing PHP Unit application, which is what the Laravel framework. And to do this, we're going to be looking at the opendoor.me web, and absolutely awesome. We have Tom, who is the creator of opendoor.me, with us on the stream, so I'm going to bring him in, and we can get chatting, and we can talk a little bit about opendoor.me and take us through it. So let me bring him in.
Hey all. Like all of you, I have no idea what Luke said the last minute, so I will just do what I think he wanted me to do and talk a bit about me and Openda. So who doesn't know me, I'm Tom Witkowski from Hamburg, Germany, and doing a lot of Laravel and open source for Astrotomic, my own GitHub organization, and also maintaining several Spacia repositories packages. And I started Openda end of May, if I'm right. And yeah, it's what the headline says. So it's a platform to make your open source work visible to all other people. So also other developers, but also recruiters and headhunters and all the stuff. And yeah, you can sign up by GitHub. And after signing up, you will see your GitHub avatar on the top right. If you click it, you will have the option to go to your profile, and on your profile, you will see all of your contributions we have indexed. There's a small exclamation mark. So because we got a lot of questions about it, yes, we don't have all of GitHub indexed. So we can only show and index all repositories maintained by a person who already signed up on Opendami. So this is a small limitation. So in case you miss one of your contributions or whatever, you can ping the maintainer, for example. Or if you are the maintainer and the repository is owned by an organization on GitHub side, check that you are a public member of that organization. Because if you aren't public and this is the default, by default, you are a private member, we also can't see this organization, and because of this, not the repositories. So yeah, now I'm ready to talk about Opena and me. And what we will do today is adding Pest to it. And I have here Luke.
Double check my audio now, Tom. I don't know whether that's any
better. Now it's a lot better.
Hey.
So now I can understand you.
Well done for picking up on the talk us through it. That was great. That's good.
So before you were like a Terminator with a headshot, so all this really nothing to understand.
That's just me. I got to put my teeth in before the stream started. Yeah. All right, brilliant, awesome. Thanks for walking us through that. So yeah, I'm right in saying as well, Tom, that if somebody's not already signed up to opendoor.me, they can go and do that today, and they would have all of their stuff indexed. There we go.
And I think that one of the very first or biggest questions or fears or whatever, all people doing tests know PhpUnit, and it's the first tool coming to mind. And also Google spits out if you do search for PHP testing framework. And I think a lot of people, and also Betel wrote it in the comment, is that they are scared of moving from PhpUnit to Pest. So possibly we could talk about some of the benefits or reasons why you would like to move from PhpUnit to Pest. So I think one of the very first is Pest isn't a totally new testing framework, but it's using PhpUnit under the hood.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it is basically PhpUnit with a lovely wrapper on top. And the source code can be a little bit, I guess, intimidating to look through, because it is doing some complex stuff with PhpUnit. But under the hood, it finishes with a test case similar to what you'd experience in PhpUnit. And hopefully, when we move some of opendoor.me's tests into PhpUnit today, you'll see that it is almost identical, and you can pick up very quickly with Pest going from PhpUnit. So don't worry about that. We'll jump into that in just a second, and you'll see how simple it is. So to get us started, then I have the opendoor.me GitHub repository. The site is open source, and we've already gone and pulled it down. But today, Tom has very kindly gone and added a little installation guide. So if you want to get the project up and running locally yourself, then you can follow the installation guide. And
it's not fully complete, but I think it removed some of the biggest hurdles for a lot of contributors. So you don't need Postgres anymore. You don't need Redis or the correct PHP version on your machine. This is all now in Laravel. So the Docker wrapper before sale, and I've also tweeted some minutes ago that I still search for a Docker experience developer who could do a custom setup, because Laradoc is a massive Docker setup with all the things like Miley Search and all database drivers possible and so on. So if anyone here is Docker experienced and can do a Docker setup with Docker Compose for PHP 8, Postgres, Redis, and Nginx or Apache, whatever you like more, this would be really great if you could contribute it, so we can get rid of the Git submodule of Laradoc.
There you go, first contribution. Awesome. So let's jump in. And thank you for the suggestions the other day on Twitter, by the way, about shared pair coding. We are going to use Code With Me in PHP Storm. And Tom has control, hopefully, I think. Can you just test that, Tom? Can you click around? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Days. All right, so before I ever start writing tests in an application, I like to know the structure of the application and the basics of how things are put together, where things come from. So would you be able to take us through on a whistle-stop tour of the site, Tom? Show us where we should be looking.
Yeah, so like you can see here, calling GitHub API is one of the largest parts of the application. So we have several queue jobs here, all interacting with the GitHub API. So for example, here, loading all the organizations the user is a public member of and storing them in the database. After this, for example, if the organization would be created new, we will load additional data, like if it's verified, description, Twitter handle, and so on. One of the largest ones is load repository contributors. So it's also running as a batch and now pretty optimized. So we call the contributors endpoint in a loop to get all the contributors, and for every single contributor, we add another add repository contributor job to the batch. So for some repositories, this whole setup will create like 20,000 jobs in the queue. And yeah, so this is about jobs. We have also two of the base classes abstract doing some basic stuff. And here some basic GitHub stuff, so like handling rate limit response. And yes, every GitHub job has to be unique. We have this back-off strategy. So if you want to get more in detail, I've talked about this whole queue setup, for example, in the Laravel Worldwide Meetup in June, I think. And yeah, so beside of this, we also have some models. So most importantly is organization, repository, and user, and this repository user pivot model. These are all local model versions of the GitHub models or endpoints. And so you have some static code, for example, also here, like, like here from GitHub. So getting the data and checking if there is already a user with the same ID, otherwise create one. And yeah, some other stuffs are, I have some blade components. So like the repository card here, for example. And also here in the home section, getting random contributors.
Yes,
and yeah, these components are self-enclosed, so they get their own data. You don't have to inject it from the outside.
Okay. Very good.
And yeah, I think that's nearly it. So yeah, we have some socialite things here. but that's all code. Yeah, for sure you could or should test it that the user can sign in and so on, but most of the logic here is done by Socialite. And most of the routes are doing here route view, so I immediately just render a view instead of going to any controller. Yeah.
Very good. I mean, it looks neat already. It looks neat already. So, you know, only going to be fairly simple to see what's happening and be able to add tests, which is always good. All right. I just made the font a little bit bigger. I hope that's a little better for everyone. All right. So let's do it. Shall we? I'm going to stop syncing with you, Tom, if that's okay. Thanks for the tour. There we go.
You can keep it so I can see on my screen what you are doing. Oh yeah, you followed me. Okay, yeah. Now I have to follow you.
All right. So I think the first thing is to go and get Pest installed, right? So
I think it would help, yeah.
Super straightforward. We're on Laravel, so this is the one I'm actually kind of interested in. So we'll run the installation steps. And one of the things I'll say is, even if you're not ready to go from PHP Unit to Pest, you should definitely be using the expectation API even in PHP Unit, which it works flawlessly in PHP Unit. But honestly, the expectation API is absolute fire and completely improves the readability of your PHP Unit tests no end. So if you want to do things in little steps, that's also possible with Pest, which is really nice. It's not like you have to go from nothing to everything being Pest. You can do things slowly.
You only say this because you contributed a lot to the expectation API.
Well, that's exactly what I did. So when we started using Pest, we weren't using Pest in whole. We were just using the expectation API, because it just kind of fits in with Pest. If you're using JavaScript tests or anything like that, you feel like you're doing the same thing. So that's how we started, and then slowly moved on to everything be Pest. I'm going to say no here, but you should definitely go do that. All right. Cool. Let me show you what that's done. So you can see now in the test directory. Let me close everything out. So we've just got a clean structure. So you can see in the test directory, not much has changed. We have a few new kind of files going on, but everything else looks very similar to what we had before. If we open this pest.php file, you'll see that Nuno's gone and very nicely added comments for everything. So you don't have to be worried. First thing I'll probably do is remove that because we don't really need the extension at the minute. And let me just explain kind of what these various things are doing. I'm going to get rid of that as well. So what you have to remember about Pest is that everything is functional. So you're not working in classes. And although you can use traits and you can use a base test case, you really want to be working in a functional style. So you might think, well, if we're doing that, how do we tell Pest about PHP Unit? Because remember, Pest isn't a completely separate testing framework. It's a wrapper on top of PHP Unit. And the way we do that is with this users call. So in our pest.php file, we can basically tell Pest which PHP Unit test case to use. So if I was to click and go into this test case, you'll see that we're actually already looking at the test case here, right? So Pest is already kind of smart enough to understand that in Laravel, that's probably what we want to do. Now, it isn't actually quite right because in this particular repository, Tom set up a separate test case for features. So we actually need to update this to make that take place. And we can actually just go grab that, I think. Using namespacing. And all it takes every test that we write in the feature directory is going to use this as the base test case. So it's really simple to kind of get started and to point. If that CS fixer pop-up pops up again, make sure I make sure I get rid of the error reporting. It's really simple to get up and running. And now every feature is pointed to, so every test case in feature points to this test case as a base.
Can you increase the font size a little bit more? Someone asked in the comment. I know that you have to increase the font size really a lot on 4K displays or Apple machines. So most times I'm using something like 28 pixels.
Okay, let's try 28. Giant text.
I think that should be enough. If not, Johnny, write again in the comments.
Awesome. Right, so at this point, let's actually just see if we can run the test suite, right? So to run it, we run vendor bin pest. And it's going to be a bit slow because things are happening and I'm streaming. But you can see we've not actually written any pest. Like, we've not done any pest tests, but the test cases still ran. And that's because, as we've said before, Pest is just a wrapper for PHP Unit. It's not replacing the world. So yeah, you can still run your PHP Unit test. That's really nice. However,
I think that's the best feature Nunu implemented or did for Pest, making switching really easy. So if you already have a project, you can just add Pest, keep all of your test cases, and you don't have to change anything, and only write new tests using the Pest logic. So you don't have to go through all the tests and rewrite them.
Yeah, exactly. You can do it as quickly or as slowly as you want. It's not you've got to move everything over day one. You can do this over the course of months if you want. So let's jump into our
even never
test case then. Even never. I think the first thing I probably want to do is start migrating these over to the expectation API.
Oh yeah.
And this is a really nice demonstration of higher order tests or higher order expectations. So let me see. I might have to just set up. Yeah, I need to just set this up. So give me 1 second.
I don't hear anything. Seems like you are muted. I remember the WordPress empty file slogan now. Words are silver, silence is gold. Nothing. Your microphone doesn't want you to stream today. Now, there was a mouse click.
Is that working? Is that back?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. This is like more of a streaming tech meeting than it is actually like code. But thanks for bearing with us. Yeah. Okay. First thing we'll do, let's refactor this code to expectations. And you'll notice we're not actually going to leave PHP unit at the moment. We're literally going to just start refactoring. So first thing to know about expectations are that you put what you want to test in first. And what we actually want to test here is the user full name. And what we're going to ask to check is that the user full name is Tom. How do you pronounce your surname, Tom?
Like it's written Tom Witkowski.
Witkowski. All right. So if you do autocomplete on the expectation API, you can see that there's like loads of different assertions. And they all are documented in expert detail in the Pest PHP documentation. So if you want to know what these assertions do, then you've only got to go over to the documentation and take a look at them. But it's very natural. So to be is the equivalent of assert same in PHP Unit. And if I now comment this out and rerun this test case, you can see it still passes, right? So that's the expectation API versus the assertion API that PHP Unit ships with. And yeah, personally, I'm a huge fan of this. It reads much better in my opinion. So yeah, say of that what you will. But let's go and I'll tell you what, let's use a little bit of IDE magic to do this.
I'm sorry if I say something you wanted to handle later, but wasn't there a way to have a model attribute higher order expectations? So you expect user and change the property full name to be, or was this rejected? I've just seen that there was a pull request somewhere, but I haven't followed it.
Yeah. There is indeed. So give me 2 seconds and I will certainly do refactor into that.
Okay. Also, audience, you haven't heard anything. I think you are already muted again. Yeah.
You hear me now? Is that?
Yeah.
I think that's back.
In case this keeps happening, you could also join with your smartphone and keep it as audio only. So as you don't need your PC audio. Yeah, Nunu, I'm always giving spoilers. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now, Tom? Is that can you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think it's something to do with running. It seems to happen whenever I run the test.
Yeah. That's a stream prevention implemented by Nuno. As soon as you run pest, your microphone is muted.
That's the. I'll have to see if I can go and put a PR in to revert that change. All right. So yeah, this is nice. But when we're working with, which Tom alluded to, when we're working with attributes and methods on the same object, we can use higher order expectations, which are really nice. So we start the same way by calling expect, but rather than passing the entire expectation in, rather than passing the entire property in, we just pass the root, which is user. So we're just dealing with the user object. And what I can do is I can go and remove all of the expectations below. And at the same time, I'm going to remove the function call. And then I'm going to remove the semicolons. So you can see now we've refactored this to kind of a high level expectation on the user object.
You're already muted again. Yeah. Johnny said something. Could it be that muting your microphone has a shortcut and is mapped to the same key bindings or shortcuts as you use for whatever you are doing, running tests or multi-cursor or whatever?
Can you hear me, Tom?
So there's something back. Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, to be honest. It's not muting the actual mic, which is strange. But then it just cuts out every so often. This is currently
But
using
no, it also sounds like your embedded microphone of your MacBook is used. Silence again. Oh yeah. Some USB electronic. But for all of our audience, this is the reason why streams with two people are a lot better. Because if someone has technical problems, there's at least a second one being able to entertain the audience. And it seems like Luke is back.
Sorry, Tom. Man, I'll have to have a look at this after the stream. Hopefully it doesn't happen too many more times. In order to avoid the keyboard shortcut issue, I may see if I can run the test using that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, expectation API, higher order expectations. And we can kind of write a test like this. And I'm a little bit scared to run this. Actually, I tell you what, I might. No, I've not converted to pest yet, so I can't do that either. Let's try it one more time. Can you still hear me? Am I still audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I ran the test and you still heard me. That's great. All right. So you can see we still pass. But again, expectation API, I feel, has kind of taken us to the next level here. Looks really nice. Looks really nice. So why don't we kind of do the next thing and convert this entire thing to a pest test. First thing you can do, get rid of that, get rid of the namespace. We don't need a namespace. And there's two ways to write a test in Pest, and that's either by using the it method or the test method. I actually kind of like it. Yeah, I'm an it fan myself. And the other cool thing about writing tests in Pest just open this up so we get rid of the syntax problems. Yeah. Where does that happen? Just get rid of that.
That's the upper one also.
Good spot. Yeah. The other good thing about writing tests in Pest is that our test description is just a completely user-decided string. So we don't need to do these underscores anymore.
But does it have to be unique or still have to be unique?
Whew, that's a good question. I would need to. It certainly needs to be unique in the file, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't be able to have another test called this in this test case. I'm pretty sure that if I was in a different file, different name, the same name, sorry. But yeah, within the same test, it has to have the same name. I'm pretty certain. So yeah, that actually isn't far off converted, which you can see didn't take much time at all. I'm actually going to head into the terminal and run pest here, and let's see if it appears in our. This is the old one. Let's see if it appears.
Nunu's second case, it has to be unique per file. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So there we go. That's, I mean, what did that take? Like 20 seconds on stream to move that entire test case into Pest. Like if you didn't want to use the expectation API and you were just migrating from PHP Unit to Pest, it's a matter of getting rid of the namespace, deleting any class syntax, and then wrapping it in either it or test and providing a function. Like that simple. So yeah, really nice. Now you might be wondering how inside a function we're able to call this fixture. And basically what's going on is every pest test is bound to a test case, right? We bound it here in the pest.php file. And then what pest is doing under the hood is when it receives, it needs to call, it's actually going to bind it to this test case file. So it uses reflection to do that. And that means that we can access this test case as if we were inside it, which is why we're able to access this fixture. So yeah, that's really cool that we can do that. And we don't have to worry about how that works. You know, we don't have to worry about, well, what if we need some helper methods that we've got in the test case? It will all just work. So yeah, really nice. This user assertions assert user, I do believe, is something you guys have written, Tom.
Yeah, it's handmade. I just like to explain it a bit. I like composite assertions. So I think a lot of you know it. If you write a lot of tests, you have a lot of times the same kinds of assertions. Sometimes big ones like here is the user model, so that all the attributes are present and have the correct values and so on. Sometimes smaller ones like checking that an array is an array of coordinates, for example. So having attributes lat and long and with the values between -90 and +90 and so on. Yeah, and that's what I like to use composite assertions for, to having reusable parts of assertions.
Yeah, no, that's really nice. I like that. And is that required? Because that's a trait, isn't it? So is that required in the base test case?
No,
Where
that's why it's a trait. So user assertions, and that's something nice about traits in PHP. Static methods can be called on the trait without importing it, like if it would be a class itself. So you don't have to use the trait, you don't have to load it into your class or whatever. You can just call the static method on the trait, like if the trait would be a real class.
That's really nice. Yeah, yeah, a really nice way of grouping everything together.
And that's what I'm
so what we
using
can do
always.
while we're in here,
yeah, I'm using always traits so that it's clear that you don't have to use or call this class from whatever. You can import them if you want, but if you don't, you still can use the methods the same way. And not importing it makes it a bit easier to prevent conflicts between methods. So if you would have somewhere else as a user, like on a API response trait, for example, you would get into conflicts, and without importing the traits, you can just call them on the trait itself.
Okay, yeah, that's really nice. So yeah, very nice, very nice. But I think we can actually take these assertions and turn them into expectations, right?
Could be possible, yeah.
Let's do that. Expect actual, and again, I mean, you know that thing like in Laravel where you tend to try something and it just works most of the time because things have been thought about. Yeah. I find the same thing with Pest. Like most of the time you type something and it comes up as a suggestion and you're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. So
is there a way to macro expectations into the expectation thing? So like expect actual to be user, for example, so you don't have to care about okay.
So it's actually as simple as that, which is nice. And then obviously inside of there we'd be doing our expectation.
Yeah. So I think that this would be this would be the best way to doing it, as it's a full Pest way to do it. So like to be user model, and
are you saying
that way we could
instead of this? Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that's nice. So just to
because yeah, in that case you could chain it into higher level expectations. So it would be expect user to be user model, full name to be string, and so on.
Yeah. If you're wondering where the documentation is on custom expectations right at the bottom.
Yeah.
And again, the function is bound to the instance, so you've got access to this, which is nice. Or you can just build up a new expectation. So that being the case, let me close this down. That being the case, we would probably want to do that in our Pest file. So there's a nice space here for custom expectations. And unless I'm mistaken, we could actually keep the same, we could keep it clean by leaving it inside this trait. So we could receive the user, or to stick with what you've put before.
If I've checked the documentation correctly, you would just call sys to be instance of user, for example. You don't need $actual.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because you're passing. Yeah, my bad. We're passing in. So that'd be like, yeah, if we were going to do something like expect 1 to be greater than, let's say we were creating this to be greater than 0, then 0 would be here.
Exactly.
So that would be a comparison. Whereas, yeah. So here we can say, I want to access it through user assertions. Cool. And then if we were to head back to our details test, we should now be able to say expect user to be user. And just to check that that's worked before we go any further, we will run the test suite again. All right.
Perfect.
Happy days.
You can even remove the second expect user. Or that way, yeah.
So there we go. Once again, higher order expectations coming in the bomb. But I think you have to be careful. Like, it can get messy. And Sam and I mean, Sam was kind of the guy who created certainly the initial version of higher order expectations. It was his brainchild, so I can't take credit for that. But even he was like, well, you don't want to use it everywhere. You need to be careful how much you use it. So that is true. I find it nice to, like, if you couldn't split each thing into its own line, so each expectation into its own line, I'd be tempted to use multiple expectations.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with short and snappy expectations, it is nice. It reads nicely. And
so if you have
a
a lot of
refresh
expectations, like expect year to be integer to be greater than and so on, in that case you would use a single expectation for the year. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If I was going to do, say, I think probably more than 3 chained assertions, I'd be tempted to move into separate expectations.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that you want this to be readable. User refresh returns the model as well. So now, because we're not looking to use the individual expectations, you can actually just shove user refresh in there.
I'm not that sure if refresh returns the user, because refresh replaces or refills. Okay. So there's a difference between refresh and fresh. Refresh refreshes the same instance of the model, so with the same object reference, and fresh returns a new model instance with new retrieved data from the database.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but it always returns the model. Okay.
So I've sometimes found that as I've been converting to Pest, let me just close this window. As I've been converting to Pest, the tests get simpler and simpler, to the point where the entire thing sometimes is just an expectation. There's like barely any setup taking place. So yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah,
it's really nice. I really like, by the way, you mentioned it before the stream started, but I really like it, this fixture thing going on. So in case you guys are wondering what's happening here, we're not actually doing a real API call. In the test case that this extends, which is in the setup, there's always a faked HTTP request. which I thought was really nice. So anything to api.github.com is actually going to take a look at what you requested and then attempt to return a fixture for that. And the fixture is just based on the path that you pass it. So I thought it was really nice. You've not got to worry about faking HTTP requests or anything like that. It's all like unified. Nice paradigm. One thing here, you'll note that I've got a red squiggly line. Some people complain that Pest doesn't have very good IDE autocomplete, but often it's just because they've not tried Pest. It actually has really good IDE autocompletion. So in this case, it's not complaining because we've called this. It's actually just complaining because fixture is protected. And yeah, you can fix that by literally going in and updating fixture to be a public. And yeah, so you can see there's no ID errors. We've got full autocomplete. So if I do this, you see I have everything you would expect to be auto-completed. I'm not missing anything. So that's one thing that I kind of see a lot on Twitter. People are worried that it's like, how can it auto-complete when you're inside a callable? It doesn't make sense, but it does auto-complete perfectly. So
do you need any plugins, or does it work with PHP doc blocks or whatever, Black Magic?
I am I have the plugin. So there's a Pest plugin for VS Code. There's a Pest plugin for PHP Storm. But I'm pretty sure because the closure is, I mean, Nuno is a stickler for type hinting and making sure that static analysis passes, which is really good. Because even though PHP Storm doesn't have like perfect static analysis support, it knows that when, for example, this function is reflected and bound into the test case, that everything from that point out will have access to the test case it's bound to. So it's just been done really well. Like the source code is really nice, even though it's quite deep and complex. It's just done in a way that is understandable and easy to kind of work out what's going on. So yeah, if you've not actually like looked at the Pest source code, then like do. It is really good, and it takes away the magic as well, because it's sometimes the same with like Laravel. When you use certain things like facades, your immediate thing is, oh, you can't use that. It's a static method, and static methods are bad. And by actually taking a look in the source code, you realize what's actually going on. It makes things a lot clearer. Awesome. I'm going to close this little test runner. So this entire test case is now converted. We're in Pest, and that's wonderful. Let's move on to the user test here in models. And there's a few more tests here. So let's see how quickly we can convert this entire thing to Pest. First thing I want to do, as before, is get rid of any to do with classes. Let's just remove them. And instead of saying public function, we'll say test, or it, prefer it. And we'll replace that with a function call. Okay. I imagine that's complaining because of something else. Yeah. So let's carry on with one. And in fact, I wonder if we can do this using the IDE to speed things up even further. Probably would be better to just search for public function. Okay. So it, and then we'll jump to the end there. I'm assuming that they're all formatted in the same way.
They are.
We'll add a function. Happy days. and do this. Ha. Okay. So, yeah, I think actually at that point I'm going to run the Pest suite. Ooh, okay. Let's wait until it's run and see what happened. Attempt to read property full name on null, and that was it updates user details from GitHub. Isn't that our... okay. So this is something to be aware of. User assertions, or even pest.php. We did this, but we never actually returned what was gonna take place. So we can just return this, return a new expect, but yeah, you can just return this, and hopefully now if I run this again, that will pass. Aha. All right. So although some of these skip because they require PostSQL, Postgres to run, it worked. You can see we're completely in Pest now. And I don't know, that really didn't seem to take too long. I would just go and change this. I mean, even things like being able to include capital letters for GitHub make a difference. And when it comes to numbers, I think numbers are the best thing. If you're working with like numbers in your test names.
Still, again, the Terminator. Not better yet. Still noise. Noise. At least Nuno is still watching us, so it can't be too bad what we are doing.
One, two, there we go. I think that's.
Yeah.
I think I'm back.
Yeah. You are.
Right. So yeah, I'm going to fix this before the next one. I don't know what's causing it. It worked on my machine. Okay.
Best developer excuse.
If only the microphone had a test suite, it would work. So yeah, I'm just going to go through basically and update these test names. Which is fairly straightforward. But I mean, in your first like pass at moving from PHP Unit to Pest, you really don't need to do that. It will work with the exact same test case names that you've written in PHP Unit. let's fix some of these. I noticed a few syntax errors. So requires PostgreSQL. Let's take a look at what that's actually doing under the hood. Mark test skipped. Right. Now this is interesting because obviously we want to use something in the base test case. I'd be interested if Nuno or someone on the stream can think of a nice way to do this. But basically, let me show you the documentation. It's actually a really nice way of skipping tests inside inside Pest, and that's just by chaining the skip method on the end.
Yeah.
And we can pass a Boolean as to whether it should be skipped or not. But I don't know that the Boolean is bound. I don't know that the Boolean is bound to the test case, even if we pass it as a closure.
Seems like your internet connection got slower now. Your screen is a bit choppier, blurry, pixelated, however you want to name it.
Let me have a look.
I can highly recommend to use a wired connection for streaming.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I will disable my camera as well, just for a minute. All right. See if we can fix the issues for next time. But yeah, so we can skip tests using this really nice, like, skipped syntax. Can I reshare the screen? Yes, of course. See if that's any better.
Yeah, now it's sharp again.
Okay. Yeah, so we can skip tests using this Boolean syntax, but I don't think there is a way to bind this to the test case. Maybe we can using a closure, but if not, then that's maybe something for a PR.
Yeah.
Interesting, because in that, if we could do that, we'd be able to say, like, skip if this requires PostgreSQL. As it stands at the moment, I don't really want to put advanced logic, especially because db get driver name obviously isn't resolved until the Laravel container is resolved. So I'm going to leave that for now, but that might be something we come back to next time and see if we can.
But you can at least make it public, so PHP Storm doesn't complain.
And you'll see, like, as soon as we do that, all of any syntax errors go away again, and we have auto completion as well. Like, that all just works. So again, really nice. Let's take some of these and turn them into correct things. So we've already said that we can expect a user to be user. So we've already created that. We can remove this already. And looks like we're again calling on properties and methods from the user. So we can jump into higher order expectations again. Email to be, and you can even do methods, which is really nice. So we can call a method on the user object. I mean, yeah, I think that's really clean. I mean, if you wanted to go some people won't like this, but you could even go down to that.
I think one way we could even do is putting this user from GitHub into a before call, because so far I know we are doing this for absolutely every test in this file.
Yeah. Yeah. So something, I mean, it could even just be so you're saying a property on the, like a public
No, not in the test case. No. This user from GitHub call is part of every single test in this file. So we could put it into a before call and write the output to this user. And I think in that case, we could even use the higher order expectation on it. Wasn't it like that? So that you don't have to pass in a callback, but you just can use it, expect this user to be a user, and so on?
Yes, so that's higher order tests, which, so let me show you what higher order tests are, because they're worth knowing about. Higher order tests are awesome. They'll let you do, they let you basically miss out the closure at the end and just chain your assertions and the rest of your test as function calls, which is awesome. Like you would think, well, okay, well, can we just do this? Oh. And get rid of that. So that is what a higher order test looks like. The issue here is that actually we're retrieving something that requires the Laravel container.
Mm.
So what that's going to do is, if you think about it, when PHP executes this code, it's got to execute all of these methods, and it's got to resolve all of the properties in those methods. But at the time that happens, none of this doesn't exist yet. So when it tries to resolve that, it's going to fail. So currently there's actually a PR out in Pest that should go in soon, hopefully, that would allow you to do something like this. And that basically will wait until the test case is fully up and running. In other words, till Laravel is available. And at that point, we'd be able to do this. So we can certainly come back, and when that's in.
You are again the Terminator. Only some noise. Noise. You are back.
Hello? There we go.
Hello.
I'm going to try a different USB port. I'm clutching at straws now. Yeah, I don't know how much of that you heard then, but basically, if we were able to resolve, which hopefully very soon we will be able to, then this would work. But as it is, it won't work. So we have to keep it wrapped, sadly, at the moment.
So higher order tests only work for values available without any framework needs or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So it actually says it at the here. You can't access runtime helpers in Laravel like root. It's basically the same reason. But hopefully soon you'll be able to pass a closure into expect when you're using higher order tests, and that will work. And I will bring, as soon as that is available, I will make sure to bring it out. But yeah, what we can do is say this user equals, and it's the exact same every time as you said. So we should just be able to pull that into there.
Sometimes followed by some more calls, but this is the first line in every test.
Yeah. And we should then just be able to say this user. I mean, look at that. It even had, I don't know if you saw that. actually auto completes the user. So anyone who's like, no, it won't have IDE completion, just try it because it will surprise you. All right. So let's just see if our tests will still pass. Hey, happy days. So this is really nice. I think that looks short of turning it into a higher order test as we've just been talking about. That really does look nice. It's clean. It's clean. I mean, I don't know whether this is one step too far, but seeing as we always are expecting on the user.
No, sometimes we are calling some user methods on the user.
Okay. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right. So that will. I wonder if we could make that a callable, which would allow us to grab a new user.
Yeah.
Because then we'll be able to say this user. I mean, let's see how far we get down the line before we refactor this anyway, but we could then call it and each time get a new instance. So again, this would start very simply with expect user1 to be user. And we'd have the same, but for user2.
Couldn't you even you put them as an array? So expect an array of user1 and user2 and use each higher order expectation thing?
Yep, absolutely. So we can certainly do that. So one of the other things available, which is, let's see if we can do this the whole way down. I just want to throw
in a lot of the cool stuff Pest can do, so people can see all the things.
So the first thing we're saying is that each one should. Yeah. Can you hear me still, or am I? Have I turned into a robot?
I can hear you. Everything fine.
So yeah, we can say each to be user, and what that's going to do, basically, the each method. If you've got an iterable, which obviously is just anything that can be looped through, so a collection, an array, then you can call each on it, and that's going to go through every item in the iterable, and it's going to call the expectations that come after it. Each user should be a user, basically. Now we also want to say that each one should have the name of gummy beer, which is probably going to be, we need to kind of reach inside. So I might be tempted, let me think of the best way to do that. We might be able to do it with a sequence call, actually.
What does sequence do?
So sequence is a little bit like each, but so in the same. Oh. Hello. There we go.
Hello. Yeah.
Sequence is a little bit like each, but what you're doing instead is you're saying that I want to go through the iterable, and for each expression that I provide, I want you to pass those expectations.
You are the Terminator again. And yeah, Nunu, I at least follow you and some other contributors because you are also actively retweeting all the cool stuff of people doing with Pest. So that's why I'm also asking most of the times because I don't really know the things and how they work and so on. But most of the times I have seen that there is something that stayed in my mind. And Luke is back, and I have to open the door for my girlfriend, so I'm back in a minute.
One, two. There we go. I think I'm back. I'm pretty sure it may be to do with Safari, to be honest. And I'm running Restream on Safari, so I might try it from OBS or something next week, or a different browser.
Yeah.
Anyway, so sequence. So basically, each is going to go through. Can you hear me again, Tom? Am I okay?
I can hear you. I've just laughed about what Sickverse has written. If you drank every time Luke was Terminator, you would be drunk by now. So possibly you should keep this setup, and we just make the next Laravel drinking game. And it could be that you have a lot more viewers next time if we do it, because all people want to get drunk on a Friday afternoon.
Well, that's one for down the line. Maybe that's the after party.
Yeah,
I'll have to switch back to Terminator for the after party. Yeah. So imagine each, right? Each is going to go through each one and assert whatever you chain on. So in this case, it's going to go through each item in the table and make sure that it's a user. But with sequence, it's going to take each closure that you pass to it or each value that you pass to it, and it's going to check that that each one matches in sequence. So the first closure is this, and it's going to check that the first item in the array matches those expectations. The second is this.
Do you have to pass one sequence callback per value, or does it behave like, I don't know on which Laravel, I think it's on the factories, where we also have the sequence, and if you, for example, have 3 sequence callbacks and 12 values, you will get 4 models with the same value. Does this sequence work the same?
I added this and I can't remember. I actually think it might do. Let's try it. Let's find out.
That's always the best. Adding features you can't remember yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to just comment that one out for a moment. We'll come back to it. Let's see.
Synchros already got a name for it, Pest by Night.
That's going to... I feel like the problem is Terminator voice is going to stick with me now, and I'm going to be known as like the Terminator guy. You know, the guy who does pest things. He's got a Terminator voice.
Or let's switch it, not pest in practice, but drunk in pest. I think someone already wrote that there is a city in, I forgot in which country, named Pest. So
that's where we're going. Right, user test user, this user. That's interesting. Of course, it's trying to because it's now looking for a. Can we invoke that instead? Would that work? I mean, at this point, we might as well switch back to the other way of doing it, but I'd be interested to see whether it works or not.
But shouldn't the other way work as well? What was the exception you got?
Basically, it was trying to call, if we do that, it thinks that user is a method on the class, and obviously it's not. It's a property.
Okay.
So I think maybe what we do is return that to what it was.
You could also use the value helper function by Laravel.
That is true, yeah. Although, would that pick up that it's oh yeah, because it's you're right.
Yeah,
you're 100%.
So switch back to a function, yeah.
And
now we are doing really crazy stuff. Here's a bug report. If I have a function on a property, I can't call it. Fix it.
He's going to have to rewrite PHP. Let's see if that
I don't
works.
think so, that he has. Let's pull out Tinkerbell Web and play around with a class. We'll have a class named foo and have a public property and construct reassign.
So here we're in a very similar way to how we did 2B user. We're going to have 2B model. In this case, you pass the comparison in, and we perform the model assertion, assert same static function. We pass the value in, and we pass the comparison in, and then we return this. Which, going back to our test to be model, although actually we need to kind of grab this out at this point. Can we do user 1 equals user 2 equals and expect, I mean, there is actually an AND method which you can use. Looks a bit like that. But I don't know whether the AND method works after an each call. Let's find out. I think one of the great things about Pest is it's like with PHP Unit, you're usually writing tests to write tests, if that makes sense. Like you've got to write the tests, so you do it, but you don't necessarily enjoy it. But when you're writing tests with Pest, you actually enjoy writing the tests. So you take more time to think, well, how do I refactor this particular test code to look nicer and to work better? I think that's quite rare in the testing world. That is awesome. So there we go. I hope that makes sense. I mean, obviously we could break this down into... Hello?
Yeah, hello. If you want to share my screen for a second.
Yeah, please do. Where are we? There we go.
So you are right, it's a PHP problem, but you can solve it by having these normal brackets around the property call, and after this, these brackets for the function call. And in that case, you get what you have expected. So you don't need value. You only need these brackets around.
Awesome, nice find. This is why you always need a copilot. Let's let's make that happen then. So we can do, what you're saying is, actually, let's find everywhere where we've done that. You're saying we can basically just get rid of the value call and then call that after
Exactly. Yeah. That way we could even pass in arguments or whatever we would need it.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. I think making this a little bit more readable, I'm tempted to say user1 equals this or this user. I mean, we can go crazy, but sometimes it's best just to play safe a little bit, which would allow us just to say expect user1.
Oh, and now you have to remove these brackets directly after user.
Of course. Yeah, expect user1 to be the user2 model. And then we could say and user1, user2, followed by those chain method calls.
Yeah.
Let's see if that works.
I had the same idea like Nuno already said. I think the really best thing we can do is you are Terminator, so it's good that I'm talking. We could create a function on the Pest PHP or create a method on the test case so that you can call this user as a real method or as a global function, whatever we prefer, and with an optional argument of the username. So by default, it fallbacks to gummy bear. But if we would need a user with a given name like Nuno Maduro, for example, you could pass it in and overwrite the name.
Yeah. I think as well, this kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier. That although this kind of is nice, at the point where, I mean, how many times does this get used in the test suites? Over the time of us writing tests for this, it's probably going to get into the hundreds, of calls. It might be best to, in Pest PHP, add it as a function here. So there's a space here for adding functions.
Could you just jump to the test case and the feature directory?
Yep.
And scroll a bit down below. Okay, so perfect. It shows what I'm typing. This is how we do it. And now this code with me makes total sense. And damn, this one. So, and that, and we return a user. Okay.
Nice. Which would allow us to, first of all, in the user test, get rid of this before each. And wherever we've done this user, we can actually get rid of the enclosing brackets now because user is on the test case itself.
Yeah.
And then we just pass the name in.
You can, I would do it for the ones with 2 calls, but for the first one, I would just, because we assert the name, so yeah. Even if it falls back to gummy bear, let's pass it in for readability.
All right, let's see if that works. Oh, looks like I started something, never finished it. You didn't see anything.
Yes, Synchros, you are in general right, but because Opanda only cares about GitHub and has only set way to create and retrieve users from GitHub or out, there's absolutely no other way to create a user. So even I, as a super administrator, don't have any form in the back office or whatever to create a user. It's totally fine for me to have it as user because I like short methods in a lot of times, as long as, like you said, there isn't a conflict potential. But for this application, this is totally fine for me. In cases when you have multiple registration processes, for example, so like register by email or via OAuth, you would be totally right to have a user from GitHub and user from email and so on. But for Panda, there's only the GitHub flow.
And so all of these can turn into expectations. Sometimes it's best to kind of just write things out in the most obvious way and then come back if there's a nicer way to write it. So especially when you're converting from Pest, from PHP Unit to Pest, it takes away some of the mental strain. It's nice.
But one question, if you have an array in expect, is there any way to expect that every value of the array is the same?
Yeah, you would do, if I'm understanding you correctly, you would do, let's say it's that. You would do that.
Yeah, okay,
basically.
but if I have a dynamic, so for example, expect empty random, and for sparse here once package, for example, I want to check that the method generating a random integer is only called once per runtime. I would, for example, use expect, put in 5 calls to the same method, and want to check that all 5 values are the same without knowing which values they are. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. That's actually something that possibly could be PR'd because, like, as a little bit of low-level knowledge, each dives into a new class, which is it's a class called each, which you can see here, and that's how that works. So you could actually have a specialized assertion method if it was PR'd that, like, I don't know, to all be same or something, and it would literally just go through each and check that each one matched. That would actually be a really nice little addition.
But it should be on the top level expectation, not on each, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's another thing you could do, and then have it basically
to be all the same, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's an idea for anyone wanting to start with open source.
Yeah, it's actually a really simple one as well, I think, because it wouldn't be all that complex. It's not even like you're writing any low-level PHP unit static assertions or anything. You could probably just use the existing expectations, and it's basically a wrapper around existing functionality, I think. So that's nice. Let's do that. Split those. We can. Oh, there's a reason I did that. I was going to move into higher order. So we can grab these and do the same here. right? And I think that means we can get rid of those. And then, oh, enum assertions. We've found something new. So assert is enum. I imagine that's calling another thing in here. Yeah. Okay. And then we do it basically a true assertion and expect that, yeah, it equals the actual that you've passed. Fair dues. So
I think you could even do a simple expect to be. This should do the same.
As in, rather than writing a custom expectation, you just say to be, yeah?
Yeah. Because we've changed some things in preparation for native enums in PHP 8.1. And one of the things is that we return one single instance, independent how often you call block reason spam. In this case, for example, it's always the same enum instance. And yeah, some more preparation. So there's already also a pull request for native PHP 8.1 enums, moving the logic we have added to the current enums to the native ones, like labels and retrieving all values in one time and so on. For all interested, under the hood, this is a sparse here enum package. Brent has created some years ago, and I've contributed a lot, and also created the Laravel wrapper around with model casts and some request rules and so on. So check it out if you want enums in your projects. Advertisement over.
Okay. I think that gets us there. Great user update. I'm just looking if there's anything else we can kind of refactor to make it a little bit more even pestier. I guess we're not actually ever using user 2 out of that, so we could just do. Did we ever do a to match? Mine's blocked user from GitHub.
Yeah. The second call is still important because it tests that you still retrieve the user even if it's blocked.
Okay, yeah.
Because there is some global scopes in it and so on.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, you could go crazy if you really wanted, and you could use Laravel's tap inside expectation to return a user followed by updating them, but get the same user back. But I think for sake of readability, it actually reads quite nicely there. The only thing I might do is make that an and call.
Even if I'm destroying now the points I built on Nunu's expectation, but I don't like tap.
You'll get kicked off the stream, man.
I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm not a big tap fan. I use it from time to time, but not as much as Nunu and Taylor. I think also in the core, for example. Sometimes it's really useful, primarily for these cases, which it was built for. So if you have this $user is / user equals user find by ID 1 and user update and so on, and user return user. So in these cases, tab is really cool because you save this temporary variable. But
yeah,
like Nunu does from time to time, tapping a tab and tap inside and whatever he taps, no, sorry.
Nested tapping. Yeah. I tend to only be able to do one level of tap deep, to be fair. So Adrian left a really nice suggestion, which is at this point we can actually wrap this here, and then we should be able to each on that. Now, whether each will then allow us to dive into the higher order, I don't know. So let's find out.
Andre, what did you miss? Everything. We are live since 1 hour 48 minutes. So you definitely missed a lot. Primarily Luke going Terminator, and possibly you are lucky and can drink a shot on your own if Luke goes Terminator again. But if you want to get on the same drunk level like Syncverse, you will have to re-watch the streams. So
might be able to solve this with a where are we there?
Okay, now we are doing some
crazy stuff.
Other each things here.
So this is actually, if this works, let's find out first. Hey, it works. So you can use each the way we were using each, which is obviously like in pseudocode, literally to call each and then start stringing assertions on, which is fine. But just before the each syntax went into Pest, Nuno updated it to allow you to pass a closure to each. So if you've got like more complex logic, such as higher order assertions, which basically, because of how higher order assertions work, when it's already in a higher order assertion itself, it each gets a bit mixed up as to what's going on. So it kind of, by putting it in a closure, we've kind of taken it out of the flow a little bit, and it allows us to carry on with the higher order assertions. So yeah, thanks to Adrian for the suggestion on expecting and using an each to do that. That's nice. That's nice.
And can you please move these array opening and closing brackets to the update opening and closing lines? These nearly empty lines drive me crazy.
I can indeed.
No, that was too much. No,
too much?
No.
Oh, I see. You want this. You want this, exactly. Don't you?
Yeah. And now the closing? Yeah, perfect.
Happy days. All right.
That's how I want my arrays.
Yeah, you know what's really annoying is when you do when PHP Storm refactors for me, it automatically chucks everything on a new line. So I need to like dive in at some point and look at the auto refactor.
I know.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm actually gonna. I think we're gonna probably leave it there for today. I don't want to take up everyone's evening too far. But hopefully you can kind of get a sense of where we're going with this. I'm planning on streaming weekly, hopefully with less mic issues. So we'll see how that goes. But next week I won't be streaming because, again, hopefully, unless Nuno kicks me for my bad mic, I should be giving a talk at the Pest meetup. So if you want to kind of...
Now you aren't going to give a talk. Nuno already cancelled you and asked... Yeah.
He's gone elsewhere. He's probably asked someone who's not even a developer. He's like that disappointed in me. But no, if you want to see somebody or like a more polished version of what's happened today, and we'll dive into some extra stuff with expectations as well, then come to the Pest meetup next week. I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for bearing with us through the issues. Sorry about my microphone. I will certainly try to sort that for next time. So yeah, we'll be back with Pest in practice probably a week on Wednesday. I mean, in the meantime, there are a few things that we've discussed that you could go pick up and have a go at implementing yourself. or even contributing to Pest. Obviously, there are a few things mentioned in the stream that sound like really quite simple but great additions to the Pest framework. So yeah, if you want to get started with open source, give that a go. And I think one thing that's nice is Nuno's a really friendly maintainer as well. He never makes you feel like you're wasting your time, which is what I think some people are scared about when they're contributing to open source for the first time. They're just going to get rejected. But I've never seen Nuno just say, "I'm not doing it. I'm not going to talk to you about it. Goodbye." So yeah, don't be afraid to go and try and contribute to Pest, or pull Pest into your own projects and get using it, because it's beautiful to use. So thanks, Tom, for joining us and putting up with.
Thank you for the invitation.
Terrible mic. I appreciate it, and thanks everyone for coming and spending your evening or afternoon, or in the case of Andrea, whatever time it is in Australia at the moment. And yeah, we'll see you all next week.
Yeah.
Did you have something else to add?
Have a nice week and weekend in between.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope everything goes well at work. Enjoy your evening. Thanks, guys. Take care.